Hi, my name is Leah Sylvis. I'm the Director of Pupil Services here at the district. I was asked to explain our inclusion model that we're moving towards for the following school year. So some of you may know what inclusion is. If not, I'll give you a little bit of background about it. So the Individuals with Disability Education Act, or IDEA, requires school district to place students in the least restrictive environment, which is the LRE. LRE means that to the maximum extent appropriate, school districts must educate students with disabilities in the regular ed classroom with appropriate aids and supports referred to as supplemental aids and services, along with their non-disabled peers in the school they would attend if they weren't disabled, unless a student's IEP or individualized education program requires some other arrangement. So the procedure is for the teams, the IEP teams, to meet together to discuss what is appropriate to the maximum extent appropriate that the child is in the regular education classroom with those supplementary aids and services. On the back of the front page, I put some examples of what those supplementary aids and services are, if you're not familiar with them. Some of you may have been in an IEP meeting or included in an IEP meeting and you hear all of these acronyms. IEP, IDEA, SDI. Well, SDI, that means specially designed instruction. And that coincides with the supplementary aids and services. And those are things that help the student with special needs be successful in the regular ed classroom. So some things that our general ed teachers and special ed teachers will implement are on the back here. So for example, preferential seating, an altered physical room arrangement. Our staff also need support. So that could be a regular ed teacher having a consultation with the speech language pathologist, the OT, the PT, paraprofessional support, a behavior specialist, planning time needed for both the regular ed teacher and the special ed teacher to collaborate. There are other things such as a student may need a wheelchair or an AT device. So for example, a Dynabox for those students who need help with their language, if they're nonverbal. Some of those students that we have require an iPad to be successful in the regular ed classroom and the special education classroom. Also, specific apps are needed on those iPads to help those students communicate. But those are things that can be implemented and used in the general ed classroom. There are some other things there, such as taped lectures. A set of books that go home with the student is another supplementary aid and service that can be implemented for those students in general ed. So there are other examples there too, if you would like to look at those. So what is inclusion? Research has demonstrated that children with disabilities who struggle in reading and math can successfully learn grade level content and make academic progress when appropriate instruction, services, and supports are provided. So with the supports, that's what the supplementary aids and services help to support those kids in the regular ed setting. Low expectations can lead to children with disabilities receiving less challenging instruction that reflects below grade level. So while having those students in the general ed classroom, they are participating then in the general ed curriculum. So they are on their standards-based curriculum, which help in developing IEP goals. then those IEP goals can be better progress monitored. Also, along with instructional benefits, there are some social and emotional benefits that go along with inclusion. It helps to create friendships, increase social initiations, increase achievement of IEP goals, and there are higher expectations for our students with disabilities when they're included in the general education classroom. And it seems to be that families are more integrated into the community when everybody is as one unit in the classroom. So looking at the data, if you look on the one report that's included in your folder, this may be a little confusing to look at the bar graph here, but a big movement towards this more inclusive model is if you look on where it says SE inside regular class 80% or more. So there are different levels of services in special education. So there's an itinerant level, a supplemental level, and a full-time level, and that's on your sheet. We are not meeting the target on the itinerant level. So those students who are in the regular ed classroom 80% or more of the time. So the LEA's percentage is 53.7. The state average is 62.1. And this is data from the 2021 school year. Now that second piece there, these are full-time students. They don't have supplemental on here. So these are our full-time students. So those would be students that are in our life skills classrooms, receiving autistic supports, life skills supports. Those students will not be included unless the IEP team feels it's appropriate for them to go into a learning support classroom or a regular ed classroom with the support of a special ed teacher. So we do have strong teachers there that are wonderful with our students, especially the little ones in our life skills classes. So we are moving towards trying to meet or exceed that percentage of students in the general ed classroom participating in the curriculum. Another big push is the students who are being tested in the PSSAs are not receiving the same, or they're not receiving the state academic standards or participating in that curriculum in the regular ed classroom. Yes, they do receive that in the special ed classroom. It's just a little more watered down. It goes at a slower pace. So with the supports and services, they can be supported in the general ed classroom with that. So how will inclusion, or how will it look like in West Midland? I kind of touched on that a little bit. So those students who are receiving itinerant supports will be in the regular ed classroom, participating in the regular ed curriculum with some of those supplemental aids and services, whatever is deemed appropriate by the IEP team. So one student may not need all of that, but they may need extended time. They may need a modified test. They may need their test read to them. Of course, they will have those given to them. Those students who are supplemental, they will stay supplemental receiving those special ed services with the intention of transitioning them slowly to the itinerant level. Oftentimes, looking at a student's IEP, they only have a disability in math, but sometimes we pull them out for both math and ELA, and we don't need to do that. the teachers are being supportive and want to support those kids, but that goes into, once again, our data. That is all I have. If you have any questions, concerns, I know this is a confusing topic.
Is there planned time for the regular ed teacher to meet with the special ed teacher to do this planning?
So a lot of that depends on the scheduling that the principals and the guidance counselors work on. There are other ways that they can collaborate. On Schoology, they have shared files that are already up there from this year of COVID, so they can collaborate that way. Through email is probably the best way, but it depends on the scheduling. But like I said, they can kind of do it on the fly too.
I had thought you actually meant they would have planning time together.
That would be ideal and probably the best practice, but sometimes, that's scheduling wise, that's just not possible. But the other thing too that we will concentrate on and provide for our gen ed teachers and special ed teachers is training. They need professional development in this, and that's just ongoing. And everything in special ed, everything's always changing anyway.
So this, I just wanted to say, if I'm somebody who voted you into this role originally, it's great to see the change that you're making. It's very positive. I know that we can put you in a hard position to move forward, and I have full faith in you, and seeing this type of stuff, and a lot of folks don't understand what happens in the more successful districts, and you're taking our program to that level. And I've got a couple more months up there. I'm very happy with the direction we're going. Mr. Souls, in his prior role, had an absolute wonderful special education department under him, and I look forward to you and him and Mr. Solomon, building that same type of program for all our kids.
Thank you.
I have a couple quick questions.
Sure.
Right now, what percentage of our students who fall under these types of IEPs are itinerant?
I would have to go back and look through all of the IEPs and things are on, it's called IEP Writer that we run reports through. I would have to go back and look through that, but that includes, so there are different categories. So there are just kids who receive speech and language. So we have about 180 students that are just speech and language students. And then that goes into like speech and language with OT, speech and language with OT and PT. So all of that time is calculated into a percentage.
Right.
So
I was just trying to understand, out of the 650 special ed enrollment that we currently show, what percentage of students would be affected by the inclusion, kind of the default in the classroom inclusion model? Is this going to be a lot of change for a lot of people?
no, I know at the middle school, and Mrs. Baker, she was there, can attest, most of her kids, the way the schedule is with the minutes, they're still supplemental. Like I said, with the intention though, of moving them slowly to itinerant.
So this isn't going to be we come back in the fall and things are completely flipped on their
No.
different, and this will be in a conversation with the parents as well.
Oh, sure, there has to be an
planning
IEP, sure, there has to be an IEP meeting, and it's not just a parent decision, and it's not just a school district, a Leah decision, it's a whole team decision to answer these questions, to see if it is the best placement for their child.
And based on data and sort of state guidelines.
Correct, yes.
Thank you.
Ms. Sylvis, you have a breakdown up here that shows where our special ed students lie. Would it be fair to say that only those with a specific learning disability, that 33.2, would be the students we're looking at?
Yes, that is correct. But this is interesting to see the data of where we are, the LEA, as with the state, just the percentages of those different eligibilities.
And if this isn't already public, I'm assuming it's public, but if it could be shared some way, I think it would be of interest for our parents and community members to see that, and that's what we're trying to work on here. So the goal is to, move up our numbers and also make it, a more inclusive environment for our students as well, and keeping them on pace. Because I can see how quickly you get into a sort of a slower delivery model, next thing you know, you're a half a year behind. And that's not fair to that student if they're not being challenged and that means the pace isn't being maintained.
Right, and they will still be supported, like I said,
Right.
so.
Any other questions?
Mr. You've met with many parents. Is there a plan to meet with everybody prior to rolling this out for the fall?
So we are planning on, or we have to actually do it through, like during the summer and then at the start of the school year. I mean, the IEP meetings need to be done, or at least a case manager or myself in contact with the parents.
Okay, so the parents should be on the lookout for some sort of a transition or some sort of a meeting at some point between
Right.
July and August.
Right, yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.